the seagulls follow the trawl, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
Nobody cares, mate.
Nobody cares, mate. Nobody fucking cares, mate, honestly.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here we go again. We are on the bus again. It's Friday night, so you know what that means. It's time for a bit of time travelling, but uniquely, we're not travelling too far back this time because for the first time in Bustalgia, kind of talking about the present as well, because the player tonight, we're doing a player-focused one, and as you can see, obviously, by the title card, it's on a player who's actually still at Celtic right now, but incredibly, despite the fact that the young man still looks about 23 years old, he's actually been in the first team now for coming up on 13 years. 100 plus goals, 100 plus assists. Those numbers are pretty terrifying when you look at it. It's the one and only James Forrest we'll be talking about tonight, Centurion. You know, he's in a very, very unique club. He is a polarising figure, I think, within the Celtic fan base, given his amazing achievements. But there's still many fans out there that are like, I'm still not too sure on James Forrest. What more does the boy have to do? So we'll be discussing all of that and more tonight. But yeah, as you can see, we've got a time traveling team tonight. And yeah, Russell's not on. Even though I promised last night that Russell will be back for tonight. He's basically got stuff on this weekend he's got to get ready for. So he won't be available all weekend. He will not be here Saturday or Sunday neither. So I'll be running pretty much everything essentially for the next few days. So you'll all be sick of the sight of my face and sick of the sound of my voice by the end of it. But nevertheless, I'm here to take control and do the old Bustalgia tour as we do on a Friday night. So first and foremost, Liam Greenlaw, my comrade on a Friday night. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm still recovering from my burns night in Canada here.
Another heavy one, yes.
It was a mad burns night. It wasn't Scottish people. There was maybe about 3 Scottish people in the whole place. The rest were from Trinidad, Africa, South America, Canada, Lithuania. It was a great night. And they were all reading poetry and all that as well. They just went daft for it. It was good.
all those nationalities you just listed there, if you thought put together a Burns night, that's all the nationalities I would not have expected at all. But it's good to see about Scottish culture travelling far and wide. It's good to hear, Liam.
Made it so much better. So I take it Russell's outside Celtic Park right now trying to convince Giamakis to stay. That's what the rumour I heard.
Well, the last I heard was he was apparently spotted at Glasgow Airport heading to Amsterdam, but can't confirm nor deny that Russell's basically clinging on to his leg, going,
Incorrect.
No, don't go.
Incorrect. I heard they turned up at the airport with a fishing rod and a chicken.
Oh dear, but yeah, I could just picture we'll be heartbroken on the bus when he goes. He's been a favourite on here, Jack and Marcus. But speaking of favourites, a new favourite that's been added to the team recently. He's now part of the furniture. He's really getting around here. Steve O'Matt is back. He's in Russell's seat tonight. Steve O, mate, welcome back on the Bustalgia World Tour. How you doing, pal?
Brilliant, mate. Aye, good to be back. Hopefully, I can prop up the bar like Russell would do on this night, but always good to be, as I say, I love doing these shows. I love watching these shows and being involved in them. It's great. It's good to see you. And as I like to say, the man I call my spirit animal on the Voice of Us, Mr. Liam, legend.
Yeah.
So always good for a bit of chat. Let's make it harm.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be a good one. I think I say this. It's an interesting choice, James Forrest. I'll try to think of my next player-specific one, and James Forrest. Man, let's talk about him because he's such a divisive character. I feel, and not in a sinister way, not at all. But yeah, he's going to be an interesting one to talk about. I think so. Yeah, we'll be diving into that very, very soon. But of course, before I do all that, I will remind everybody, as I normally do, of all that good stuff that helps the channel out massively. So of course, if you are a new viewer, you've just discovered the Voice of Bus, then by all means hit the subscribe button. We'd appreciate it massively. Over 3,300, I believe, have done it so far. So you can join that list and say we will fill your YouTube inbox with lots of great content that we put out on a daily basis throughout a week. You'll be sick of the sight of us in your YouTube inbox at some point, no doubt about it. Of course, if you are a subscriber, that means you can get involved in the comments section as well tonight, and we will need your comments as well. We want to hear everyone's opinions on James Forrest as we go along. And speaking of the comments, as I usually do, we have a player-focused one. There is a question in the comments tonight, a pinned comment. The question simply asking, there are three answers. James Forrest is either A, a Celtic legend, a Celtic great, or he's other. So what do you view him as? That's what I want to know from the viewers tonight. I've not looked at the results. I just know there's been about 17 votes the last time I checked. I've looked at the results. I will check in with those at the end of the show to see what the viewers think about James Forrest. But yeah, along the way, if you did vote other, then by all means, let us know what your opinion is of Mr. Forrest. And of course, if you want to share the link of the Boise Bus, then by all means, do so on any social media platforms that you wish. And with all that said and all that done, we've got trivia, boys. We've got a trivia before we start.
Oh, you try to say that's not the question? I was waiting for it. Like, in his first game, he wore a pair of boots, but what kind were they? Or something like that. I would never get.
No. The question in the comments is simply just a poll that I want the viewers to
that would have
vote
been
in.
easy.
No. The Celtic trivia tonight isn't too bad. There's only 4 answers to it. I say only, but only easy if you know. But this is a test, boys. If you did your homework, if you watched that video that I sent you, because obviously Celtic did create a 100 goals video montage. Turns out James Forrest in his career has scored 4 hat-tricks. Who are the hat-tricks against? There you go. That's all I want to know. Who are the 4 hat-tricks against in James Forrest's career? That's it. That's all we need to know. So that we'll come back to the answers at the end of the show. You have plenty of time to think about it. You never know. Along the way, we might accidentally stumble across the answers tonight, which is probably going to happen. We'll probably talk about, maybe that time he scored a hat-trick against this team. So yeah, that is the question tonight. Just 4 answers I'm looking for. 4 hat-tricks in his career. So yeah, we'll come back to that later on. So guys, let's get started then on James Forrest. So tonight it's going to be a bit different to the normal sort of Bustalgia format, where I'm not going to go through lots of pop culture stuff and so forth and news headlines and so on. I'll really focus on one player. So it's going to really be broken into just going through his career, moments along the way and so forth. So obviously, where's the best place to start than the start, obviously? So as you know, James Forrest came through the youth academy. Yes, a player who actually came through the youth at Celtic. Which is quite a rare thing to encounter these days. But yeah, it was back in 2010, the ill-fated Tony Mowbray season. He broke into the first team. He got a chance under Neil Lennon, but he'd actually joined Celtic many years before as a youth player. But he didn't start appearing in like the reserves in the first team until about 2009, around about that area of time. The only way I was aware of him is just because I played Football Manager at the time, and I remember James Forrest was always a youth player in the Celtic team. If you went and played Football Manager 09, Football Manager 2010, James Forrest was a name that always I remember because he usually become not too bad. He always developed into a half decent player. But yeah, he's in the youth team for the early part of Tony Mowbray's reign. But crucially, if I remember correctly, Liam, Neil Lennon was working with the youth team at that point because he was back as a coach at Celtic, wasn't he?
That's right. Yeah, he was there at the time, and I think that was that was the first player that he brought through was Forrest. I remember there being a lot of buzz about Forrest in the Celtic chat at the time as well. He'd done really well in his last year before he played for us, and so he was making all sorts of, he was getting a name for himself. And so it was good that Neil saw that. And I wonder if it wasn't for that, do you think he would have got a chance? If it wasn't for Neil Lennon?
That is interesting. That's one of the sliding door moments, isn't it, Steve? Because obviously what happened that season, St Mirren 4, Celtic 0 on the 25th of March, or 24th of March, 2010. Tony Mowbray sacked the next day. Neil Lennon, who said he'd been working with the youth team and along with Chris McCart with the youth players, is promoted to interim team manager for the rest of the season.
That's right.
The league title's pretty much gone at that point. And let's be honest, Rangers were well ahead. But on the 1st of May, 2010, James Forrest got his first appearance in the Celtic team. He appeared on the bench against Motherwell in a home game, and he came off the bench and he actually scored. He's in a unique club, other than his 100+ goals, 100+ assists. He's also in a unique club of scoring in his first game, his first appearance for the club. But yeah, do you remember his debut goal and debut game?
I do. I remember him coming on and looking as fresh-faced, no necked, and still with the coat hanger at his top when he ran, as he does now. But what you say is about the sort of sliding door moment, that is very interesting. Would he have got a chance? And I think the Neil Lennon sort of relationship there really helped him, and a combination of the fact that we were a shit show and it was a good time to try things out. Let's be honest. But because when you look at Mowbray, as we unfortunately did look back a wee while ago talking about that situation, it was pretty clear to me that youth wasn't on his agenda, because he ripped out a lot of the mainstays and brought in completely different guys. So I think he was just very much focused in the there and now. Focused terribly on it, obviously, but I think the Lennon situation, the demise of Mowbray, certainly opened that door for him. That hard to tell. Maybe he would have blown us all out the water and got a chance, but just in face value, probably the right time for him.
It was one of the things that stood out, and it summed up the era perfectly. So I went back and watched that video, the montage. The first goal he scores, how many empty seats there are at Celtic Park that day.
It's brutal, isn't it? It's absolutely terrible.
You're like, is this a COVID era where people having to sit seats apart and stuff like that? It's horrendous to look at, because I became a season ticket holder in 2007, so second last Gordon Strachan season. But yeah, I was there for the whole Mowbray era, and by the end of that season, even when Lennon took over and won a few games on the bounce, league title was gone. Interest just wasn't really there. I think by that point as well, we'd lost that Scottish Cup semi to Ross County, unfortunately. So fans were pretty angry. But yeah, that stands out when I watched that one, because he obviously gets in between two defenders and kind of lobs it over the goalkeeper. But you see the view from behind the goal and just the empty seats and stuff, and you're like, oh, that's
no, it's not a podcast, Phil, but you wonder if that was calculated on Lennon's part as well. That was just like a show to Mowbray and the board and the fans and all that. It's like, wait a minute, we don't need a full rebuild here. We've got great players already in the youth. It just needs somebody like Neil Lennon to come in and give them a chance and identify that we've got quality within our ranks that can be promoted. So I think it was calculated, strategic on his part.
Yeah, it could be, but because I'm trying to think early on any other players that came through or got a chance, because under Mowbray, as you say, Steve, he didn't give them much a chance. I remember Paul McGowan appearing, but I don't know if that was Strachan first gave him his break. Paul Caddis first got his break under Strachan as well.
And there's quite a few folk that are sliding about that sort of year as well. As we say, there's guys like Cy Ferry and stuff that were getting pre-seasons around that time as well. But very much, I think that's just the old lip service, isn't it? Pre-season, you take these boys along, you give them a shot, but does it really mean anything? But undoubtedly, bringing in Forrest, and he did, it's like the old cliche, he literally burst onto the scene. You can't ask it any better than what he did on his debut. And I think as well, obviously we had some talented players around that time, but he had that sort of youthful exuberance and fearlessness early on that, that's going to do you a favour. It's this old cliche, playing the Celtic way, the old school winger that wants to run at folk and have a go. Obviously, as we'll get to, that's changed over the years a wee bit, but certainly in these early stages, that was what it was all about.
Yeah, I think from my own personal point of view, over the years, that's became my sort of bugbear with Forrest, is he's a winger. So, and I know players in certain positions, there's all different types of wingers and strikers. They're not all the same mould, but Forrest, you always felt like he's got that ability to take on a fullback and get to the byline and get across, and he's shown it enough times, but it's felt like over the years it's turned into, he goes so far, he'll get to the edge of the 18-yard line, and then instead of going for the byline to get across in, he'll just cut inside and pass the ball inside to like McGregor and stuff like that. And it's like, you're a winger, take that fullback on. But I understand that pace, obviously, players will lose all the time. But this isn't even in the last year or two. I'm talking like prime James Forrest under Brendan Rodgers. There were times where it's like, just get to the byline and get across in. But it's always cut inside, or he'll weave in and he'll shoot with the outside of his foot, which, to be fair, does bear good results for James Forrest. He's rather good at that technique and the outside of the foot shot, isn't he?
He's cutting in.
It drags everybody across with him. When you watch players and play football, and it always seems, it looks like goalies should have had it, but it's one of the hardest things for a goalie to do is to track the player and then try and make the save as well. And he's very, very good. Just shifting everything over a wee bit, making everybody uncomfortable, and then picking that corner.
I think if you want to epitomise that style, one goal that certainly comes to mind is the goal against Rangers at Parkhead, where he's running down the wing, he just starts to cruise in. I mean, admittedly, the defending's shocking, right? But he waltzes through them, and as you say, he just catches it nice and sweet, and it's almost in the side of the net, if you know what I'm saying. It's like corner, but it's flat on that side, and you think, goalie's no chance of getting that. And that's more what he does than, as you say, it's that cutting and taking it in.
Aye. Well, we'll go back to then when after Lennon got the job full time, so he comes in. We covered the Lennon first season just a few weeks ago, but we didn't really talk much about James Forrest. Funny enough, he never really featured, because going back and trying to jog my memory for this one, he isn't really a first team regular, because he's got, actually looked up his stats, he played 19 times and scored 3 league goals that season. But looking at the montage of goals, they're like games that we won relatively comfortably. There's one against Hearts where we beat them like 4-0. So he's got one of the goals in there. There wasn't like any real defining moments. But Liam, what was your sort of early impressions then of Forrest at that stage? Did you think that just a useful squad player, or were you like, no, this boy is going to live up to the hype? As you say, there was a bit of buzz around the different Celtic forums that, this player's a talent, by the way, or did you just see him as, he's okay, he's fine?
I always have high hopes for everybody that comes through our system. That you want to see them do well. You want to give them a chance. You want to see them, especially if it's a player we developed as well. But it's funny, Phil. All the Bustalgias we've done together, right, over the last few months and all that. No matter who we're talking about and what season, Forrest's name hasn't come up a lot, has it? We've talked about all the players that were, crucial and critical and creating different seasons and all that. And Forrest wasn't a name that we've talked about in any great length as like a game changer, or a guy that turned the season around, or anything like that. And yet here he is. It's some of the guys are saying in the chat, 100 goals, 100 assists. 13 years.
Club. Well, this point has just came up by John Walker as a great point, Steve-O. He's fitted every manager's system. No many players for any team have done that. And again, his longevity shows it. Because every manager that he's played under in this time that he's been in the club, they've always found a way to use him one way or another. Some with better results than others as well. But yeah, majority of the time a new manager comes in, there's going to be players that are going to be surplus to requirement. He's not going to work. He's not going to fit. They move on and so forth. But James Forrest stood the test of time, as John says here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's probably testament to his character. You listen to managers talking about them, particularly when you hear even guys like Angela talking about the question mark over why is he getting a contract and all this kind of stuff, right? Every manager that spoke about him always talks about his application, talks about his eagerness, and he seems he's very a student of the game type, never believes that he's at a level where he can't learn something new or he can't adapt. And that's going to endear yourself to any manager first and foremost. Some latter managers, he'd been there and they'd be almost part of the furniture for a long period of time. But I just think it's as I say, it's his application, and it's a lot to be said, particularly when you've maybe had injuries like he's had over his career, and that folks still see something in him, and they still are willing to invest their time and give him a spot, and get, as you said, mixed results. So he's been a consummate professional every single year that he's been at the club. In terms of you asked, what did I think when he first started? Mixed bag, and you maybe hear that from me quite a lot tonight. I respect him, and I think he's a great career, but he's always been a player that I've neither fell in love with or hated. And I think when he first came in, he was very much, as we'll say about some of our current young guys, he's raw, he's got the tools, he's inconsistent, and that was pretty much where I was at with him. I could see the good things, but the application, the execution wasn't there at times, much to fans' frustration.
I think as well, looking at that early, like with the first Lennon season, Lennon didn't really have a set formation that he played, because obviously with Forrest being a winger, he wasn't always playing wingers, because he would play, especially when Chris Commons came in, it was always two up front, Stokes and Hooper, Commons playing just behind, and then he would usually go for like Brown, Ledley and Kyle, so like all centre mids, but then sometimes he would change it up and maybe play a formation that did have wingers, and then guys like Forrest would get in the team, and of course the much loved Paddy McCourt, the old Derry Pelly, he would get a game from time to time. But yeah, I think Lennon was more, especially in the early stages, a lot of his games were based around a very narrow formation rather than wingers. But say Forrest overall for his first season, it was like 19 appearances, 3 goals in the league. But when it comes to big moments, I don't think he had many in the first couple of seasons, but the first one that sticks out to me, and we're going to talk about European ones in particular, and I've seen a couple coming up already, but before we get to Shakhtar Karagandhi, there's one that I want to bring up that people forget, even though technically this one does go down as an own goal, but that night that we beat Spartak Moscow for our first away win, it was James Forrest's shot that did rebound off the defender for our second goal. That goal doesn't get scored. Samaras's winner isn't a winner in the end, because everyone remembers the Samaras winner. But yeah, it was actually James Forrest was very, very responsible for the second goal on the night, Liam. But overall, that game was, I think that one's very much overshadowed because we beat Barcelona in the same group stage that year. And rightfully so, people are going to talk about that forevermore. That game is immortalised. But see that game against Spartak, that was proper up and down, like hide behind the couch moments, and then absolute joy at the end we scored. But yeah, James Forrest did play his part that night, didn't he?
I thought he did play a part. And you're right, that was a really important game for us. I mean, my age, that's one of the first European games I remember us handling well and actually getting the result from. That was like Spartak away, right? And that's when they were piling loads of money into that league as well. They weren't tough teams. They had Brazilians, everyone playing with that side. Yeah, I thought he showed up and he played good. And that's the thing with Forrest. When he shows up on a night and he plays well, he's great. It's how do you get him to show up? And I'm sure we'll talk about that, because that will be the common thread, I think, is like, when does he show up? Is it against big teams, wee teams? That night, it was against a big team. And that was the first time I'd seen him show up against a big team.
It was. It's a huge result that night. And what about yourself, Steve? Memories of that one in particular? Big Sammy's header. It's a great moment and it's always remembered. But yeah, James played his part. But overall, I've waxed lyrical about the first goal in that game as well. That's the perfect Mikael Lustig cross for Gary Hooper. It's like Gary Hooper, penalty box striker. It's along the ground. It's absolutely exactly where the goalkeeper hates it to be, where the striker wants it to be. And as Liam says, that game was handled perfectly. And like Neil Lennon showed that he had a game plan away from in Europe, because if you remember right as well, the 3 away games that season, we were unlucky to lose in the new camp with a last-minute goal. Benfica only beat us by a goal, if I remember correctly. Was it 2-1? We lost there. Did Samaras no score for us on the night, but we lost 2-1?
Yeah, I
Right,
think so. I think I've been tight around.
I
Sorry,
remember
were you saying
Samurai
that?
celebrating the black kit. I can remember
Yeah,
that. On the
no,
FIFA.
I remember the game well. I actually watched most of those games out at the Boozer, which was when a wee better time when I'd get out through the week to go to the games and watch them. If I wasn't at a game, and I was down in Coatbridge, down in the what's it called, the Forge, down in the Wifflet,
Okay.
God's country. And I was watching the game down there, and I see what Liam's saying about how well that game was handled.
Aye.
You know, likewise, it sounds quite sad and quite pathetic, but I remember coming away from it and going, that's a fucking, what a result that is, mate. Brilliant, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that for long periods, you didn't really feel like you were getting, you know, especially these away games. Our record, as we know, was trash. So it felt massive. And Forrest certainly put in a shift in that game and made it count. But as Liam says, it's kind of funny because we'll get to that. But these inconsistencies, for me, sometimes the difference between how well we do in the preliminaries to the real deal are different. That's one that can't be taken away from. That was a great performance all round.
Aye. Here's a memory I've got
So,
from
Phil,
that game. Yeah, on you go. What was that?
Sorry, you were talking about the Barcelona game that got nipped in the last minute as well. You remember who's that was? I think it was Jordi Alba. Whose man was Jordi Alba? Who was supposed to back? Who was supposed to be tracking back with him? James Forrest. That's the dichotomy. That's the polarity that he evokes. You know, with that. You know, the same campaign. You know, brilliant one night and then just went to sleep the next.
That was a shocker. That Alba goal. I remember that. Just.
Aye, heartbreaking because we were winning 1-0. We were winning 1-0 for a while. When we Samara scored,
yep.
Oh well, it was a kind of deflected off defence, but we were beating them 1-0 for quite a period, and then they got that last minute goal. Funny enough, talking about the whole tracking back thing, I can remember a game we played under Rodgers. We were away to Salzburg, and we were beating them 1-0, I think, at half time, and then in the second half we had a total collapse and lost 3-1. And I think the third goal is a result of James Forrest with a horrendous attempt at a slide tackle, gives away a penalty and gets sent off, if I remember right, as well. And it's like, that's why James Forrest doesn't tackle.
One of his only 2 red cards. 2 red cards today. That's one of them.
It was Salzburg, wasn't it? I can remember that one. That was like, that was just the final nail in the coffin that night. It was a dismal match, that one.
Classic Celtic going up.
But it's also just got to speak of red cards. I had a vague memory about the Spartak game again. There was a Spartak player got sent off. This is long before the days of VAR came in. But I can remember the referee taking ages to make up his mind. It was like Gary Hooper was through on goal and he gets chopped down. I'm going to summon up on Patrick McLaughlin in the comments. He's usually good at coming in and telling us what happened here. So Patrick, if you can remember how this came about, but Hooper's through on goal, he gets chopped down. It's a last man tackle. And if I remember, the referee goes over like the sideline and consults and then comes back and then eventually sends the guy off. Because it's one of those ones when I was watching it, it's like, this guy's got to go off. He's got to. And the referee takes it. It says long for the days of VAR. But I can't remember what the hold-up was that caused him to come to his decision. And I'm sure he went away and consulted with somebody and then came back and was like, okay, red card. But it took ages to come to that decision because we scored the equaliser through Forrest or that own goal just like not long after they went down to 10 men. Yeah. But actually, I could see a Spartak player getting sent off in that game and it was like they took ages to come to that decision. But I say long for the days of VAR. So even before VAR, you were getting stuff like that as well. Nowadays with VAR, they still fanny about with stuff as well and come to the wrong decisions. So nothing's really changed there. But of course, people are talking about it in the comments and saying about the European games. It was the next season where he provided a moment in time, not just for the goal, but it was probably the fastest we've ever seen Neil Lennon run. And this is Neil Lennon at manager stage. This isn't even his playing days, where we were 2-0 down from the first leg against Shakhtar Karagandhi, who were from Kazakhstan. The Kazakhstani team, yes. Obviously, 2-0, we had a shocker that night. If I remember, Virgil van Dijk was playing. That was one of his first games. And there was a defender that we signed through Wolves on a free transfer. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but he was a total injury case. Like, we signed Barikta that summer as well.
Was that Moyakolo?
Yes, that's it. It began with an M and ended with an O. I can remember that, but they two played that night.
In the bin.
Shakhtar had a long throw, was their only tactic, a long throw in. And they done us with it, I think, twice on the night. And going back to Glasgow, and it was like, well, There's only one way we've just got to go for it here and end up winning 3-0 in the end. But that winning goal at the end, Liam, Anthony Stokes, is like an out-of-body experience watching it. 'Cause I've never been in the stadium that night, but the way Stokes just weaves past them all, it's just like every move he makes was just the right move. Because Stokes at times could be frustrating when he would take a player on and maybe overdo it or something, but it was like, of all the times to get it right, he got everything right in this move. We've passed him, got to the byline, cut it back. James Forrest finishes it. And so you get that amazing image of Neil Lennon running up the sideline and piling on the players. See, the fastest Neil Lennon's ever run in his life. But what a moment. Absolutely amazing moment, Liam.
It wasn't a tap in either. I mean,
there's
still a few players for him to get all past as well. I mean, there's great skill and great composure, all that stuff. I mean, I remember watching that in the pub going absolutely ballistic as well, you know, and you just, I don't know, just one of the great goals that always goes Celtic. I remember the first leg of that. I think that's where our voodoo about plastic pitches and all that started. That Carragandi pitch was an absolute shocker. Remember? Yeah. And it was just like, oh no. And then from then, we always seemed to get in the draw for the next couple of years. We always played some Muppets on a plastic pitch, you know, and we always struggled as well. And I mean, even Van Dijk that night looked absolutely horrendous, you know, on that pitch. We all thought he might have a donkey at that point, you know.
How wrong we were.
Oh, I know.
But the thing is, that game in particular, I'm talking about the long throw. Do you remember, Steve-O, as well, at one point during the game, I think it would have been the second half, because it was down the Lisbon Lions end. They, again, done us with a long throw. I think we were tied at 2-2 at that point, and it was like one of those long throws into the box. The guy hits the crossbar for about 12 yards out, and it's like, got away with that one there. But what a night, because Chris Commons, it took a while for us to get going that night, but Commons just did what he did best, you know, just put his laces foot a lot of the time. Just for half time, last one in for about 25 yards, and that just got us on our way. Samaras got the equaliser, but I say, I can remember being in the stadium that night. It was absolute pandemonium. We talk about limbs and stuff like that. It was absolute limbs just flying everywhere. A bonkers night, wasn't it, Steve-O?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the ones. It's one classic Celtic. I mean, how many times have we played one of these absolutely nobody teams, and with that shocker our first leg, or you know, we found ourselves down. You're like, what's going on here? And that was it. You know, as you say, it was nervy. It was one of the teams where you came away and all right, their part was a shocker, but as I recall it, they weren't the worst team in the world. They almost had the chance of falling into that. Who the fuck are they? Like, where did they come from? Teams, do you know what I mean? But the long throw was just, it was so like basic. It was pure meat and two veg, wasn't it? But it cost us so many hassles. And you look at, like, as you said, we had like Van Dijk in the bank, struggling to deal with long throws, getting piled into his box, you know. But no, it was nervy. But it was nervy as soon as the goal goes in, as you say, it sort of settles it a wee bit. And then you're thinking, right, you know, turn this team over and it gets to extra time or whatever, or say each time that not talking about. But you're thinking, is it the game wears on? We're going to get this game. We'll eventually get in there. We're at home. But getting the winner and just turning it around. So rap sort of relief, ecstatic, but at the same time, so fucking hell, we get away with one there. Do you know what? And I just did visions again, an absolute nightmare horror show for a daft team putting us out. But that just seems to be our luck throughout the years. We get drawn against teams that we should, by all accounts, roll over, and we either have difficulty with it and get there, or defeat us.
Yeah. The amount of teams that have came to Celtic Park in recent years in qualifiers and have beat us, obviously Cluj, Maribor. Remember in the Europa League under Ronnie, with like Mulder and stuff like that, came to Celtic Park and beat us and all that. It's like,
you know, it's just I don't know what it is. And then even obviously turn it around, but Red Imps, Jesus Christ, like, what's going on here? Another shocking pitch that looked like
a
one
plastic
of those
pitch.
I used to get those old hockey pitches that are covered in sand and all that thin. That's what that looked like. But
the last time we saw Effie Ambrose in a Celtic shirt, wasn't it? The Lincoln Red Imps away game. I'm pretty sure that was his one and only game under Brendan Rodgers. It was like, you're not playing again after that one. But I do believe
he doesn't ever appear to get better, does he? I mean,
no, after we saw the other week, it's something quite comforting about it, though. It's like, okay, Effie, don't ever change, mate. You know, the what am I like memes for, yeah, that was definitely a what am I like moment he had the other week against us. But no, that was obviously got us into the Champions League year. But compared to the season before, Liam, obviously after getting a good result away in Spartak, beating Barcelona, legendary game, and getting through to the next round, only to get horsed by Juventus. Our campaign the next season that Forrest got us to by scoring that goal. He's actually one of the few bright spots in that campaign, because the only game that we actually won in the whole campaign was the Ajax game. He scores a penalty on the night. It's quite unusual as well that he would take a penalty, but if I remember correctly, it's a hell of a finish. And I don't know if it was a tactical thing, because maybe Lennon thought, right, the Ajax keeper might be prepared for our usual penalty takers, which I believe would have been Chris Commons at that point. Very good chance. So maybe they thought, right, we'll change it up. We'll try and surprise him with somebody that doesn't normally take a penalty. And he finishes it very well that night. But that's the game when Berham Kayal scores a crazy deflected goal to get us the winner, an unlikely goal hero on the night. But yeah, that was the only victory we had in that campaign compared to the season before. But that's when you kind of knew that the rot was kind of setting in with Lennon's first tenure. That campaign in the Champions League was brutal.
Barren. No, I just, you know, I'd see him taking the penalties. He says, I don't know if it was a tactical masterstroke or just a moment of madness. It turned out well. I mean, who changes up their regular penalty taker in a game when you've had nothing to show for it?
I know, but that was
you need wins. You need wins. I'll change my penalty taker.
It was I say that was the only bright spot, because if you remember correctly, we had Barca again. That's the one when they beat us 1-0 at Celtic Park, and that's the Neymar Scott Brown incident. We had AC Milan, who many people felt, AC Milan, they're there for the taking. They're not the force they used to be. They beat us in the San Siro, then beat us comfortably 3-0 at Celtic Park, so they definitely were a force at that point compared to us anyway. See, the Ajax game, Liam, do you remember the away leg in Amsterdam where it was just like, we were just so in our shell that night, where that was a team where you felt like they are there for the taking. This could be another good away win for us. But it just felt like we just didn't even, push them that night. So we got the win at Celtic Park, but it was all for nothing in the end, because we would then lose to Milan 3-0 and Barca would beat us 6-1 in the final game in the group. But yeah, as I say, like, that's a sort of a sign that the investment wasn't really there with Lennon anymore in terms of the progress of the team. He leaves at the end of that season, doesn't he?
I think.
I mean, you can only motivate players so many ways, I think that's what happened to Lennon. He's like, a lot of it was that fire and brimstone motivational type team talks and that. And you hear that the 40th time. It doesn't have the same effect. And I think those are players that were very, very much managed by like man management rather than, tactics and strategies and stuff like that. And it was all about getting them up for a game. And it got them up for a lot, but I think he just couldn't get them up all the time in that. And I think that was with Forrest as well. He's a player, I think, that needed to be motivated a lot. He doesn't seem to have it in his own toolkit to go out there and just sort of like take a game by itself. He has to have a role. He has to have a, something that to just does what he does.
Aye. Well, with Lennon's time coming to an end, obviously after the 4 seasons. So the first season that Forrest played under Neil Lennon, it was he got 19 appearances, 3 goals. The second season, he got 29 appearances and 7 goals. And then by the third season, 15 appearances, 3 goals. And in Lennon's final season, it was 16 appearances, 4 goals. But in amongst those, I don't know if you noticed this, Steve, during the montage, he's got a good habit, especially Easter Road, of scoring goals where he picks the ball up for the halfway line and weaves through about 3 or 4 Hibs defenders, and again, finishes it with the outside of the foot. I think he does it twice at Easter Road in 2 different seasons. Both times are wearing a yellow kit. One of them, it's that yellow one with the black stripes going across it that kind of, it's like a thick one, and it goes into a thin sort of line. And then the second one was the yellow with the green shorts. But he had the habit at Easter Road of like being able to terrorise them with like these goals from picking up the ball halfway line and just beating a whole bunch of players.
It's weird. I always find that quite fascinating. There's players that seem to have a brilliant record against certain teams. I don't know if it's just coincidence or whatever, or maybe they like to say Easter Road, you know, maybe the atmosphere, and it does something for them. But I always find, as I said, I always find that fascinating. The fact that he does have good games against Hibs, he does, and that's that every season you could probably at least pick out one game that he's done well with it.
Yep.
And it's as random as that is, and different managers, different periods, you think to yourself, who's not learned anything yet? Like, how does this keep happening? But
always at the same end as well, Steve. I don't know if you noticed that. All the goals that he scores at Easter Road are always at the end that the Celtic fans are at. I know.
It's just a series of weird coincidences, as you say. But and the style of the game, the goal, we'd probably be able to, you know, throughout the course of the night, how many times are we going to describe a similar goal?
Yep.
Because for all the sort of wee tap-ins and stuff that he scores important, there's a lot where he's taking on and he's just gliding past guys and rifling one in, and says he's you know, sometimes he'll do a cultured finish, but he's also well known for rattling them. He's not scared to put the laces through them. With a spectacular looking finish.
So there's one coming up at Easter Road in Lennon's second tenure, actually, and again in a yellow kit, a neon yellow one this time at that end of Easter Road, where he lashes it in from distance. Fucking screamer. But of course,
I'm trying to think.
Brendan had just left and Lennon took over, so we had a neon yellow and black one. It wasn't Bumblebee style, but it was a Bumblebee.
That weird one, aye. Right, yes. Aye. Yep. We didn't really wear that too much, as I recall. It was kind of a bit.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was used here and there, but it was, again, it's Easter Road, again, just some weird hoodoo he's got, just at that end. It's going to be a yellow kit, and Forrest usually scores a good goal at Easter Road. But of course, with Lennon now leaving at the end of the 2014 season, at this point, Forrest has won the 2011 Scottish Cup. He's won the 2012 League, 2013 League, and 2014 League, and the 2013 Scottish Cup. The League Cup has eluded him. But of course, as we'll find out in the next few years, the League Cup final will become a bit of a personal playground for James Forrest, where another freakish coincidence where he keeps scoring in League Cup finals. But of course, after we'll go through Neil Lennon, Ronnie Dyler comes in. Now, again, from watching that montage, Liam, with all the goals, and you see how he evolves physically. And of course, we know about Ronnie coming in with all his different diets and stuff like that. What he plays through. Is this around about the time that Forrest did start to bulk up a bit? Because obviously at that point he was the wee guy with a shirt that seemed a bit too big and stuff like that. It feels like around about Ronnie's ear, that's when you started seeing put a bit of mass on. And he started to, you know, fill out the shirt a bit more. But this would have probably been down to Ronnie's fitness regimes that he was trying to implement and the diets and so forth, wouldn't it, Liam?
I think so. I think some players take to that. Some players, they just need an introduction, you know, and they just grasp it. They get it right away. Maybe they start feeling the difference. They feel it better in training. He looks like one of the players. I mean, when he first came out, I thought he was a weird shape of a boy, isn't he? You know, his neck and his running style.
His running style hasn't changed
just
now.
Looked like it needed to just... No, it just needed to be smoothed out a wee bit. And I think the physical fitness as well. I mean, he'd have never survived coming through now. You know, like being in that sort of shape, that sort of like physicality and all that. The game is like so much more demanding that I think that probably what's added a lot to his career, and that certainly staying with Celtic as long as he has, was him actually making that effort to bulk up. And coaches and management and, you know, everybody likes to see that as well. You're seeing a commitment for a player that's actually listening. As somebody else said in the feed earlier on, he knew how to adapt to a manager, and everybody got, you know, good usage. Forrest. So I was
going to say, Steve, that kind of plays in nicely because, again, I talked about like Ronnie's ideas.
Yep.
And we know that there was a bit of a mutiny at Celtic with clicks and so forth that didn't take it too well. And again, when you look at the physical transformation of James Forrest with this era, it looks like he is somebody who did take on all the advice from Ronnie, because I say it's with this era, but compare it to what happened to certain players were a bit angry that they couldn't use sugar in their tea anymore and stuff like that. You know, you could see who took to what Ronnie was saying and who didn't. It was quite obvious at that point. But yeah, it's quite remarkable when you do watch the montage of the goals and you see him physically changing around about this era. It's I getting a wee bit more bulky, but filling out the shirt, as I say, because it always felt like it was dead baggy on him. But this is when he's starting to, become the, I was going to say physical force, but he could definitely use his body better to like shield the ball and stuff like that at this point in time.
Yeah, I think again that comes back to what I said earlier about, as you've commented on, I think that's a buy-in. Ronnie Dyler, for all the sort of bad press that certain players gave him and what folk thought of him, I was very much of the opinion now on reflection. At the time, you just talk about what's in front of you, right? But on reflection, he's not too dissimilar to Ange Postecoglou. He's almost like a prototype version of him, where he was coming in with new ideas. Maybe the execution wasn't quite as well as it could be, but the fundamentals he was wanting to try and do with nutrition, and again, admittedly, I'm not expert in nutrition and all that kind of fitness stuff, right? I've a basic knowledge, right? But from you listening to some of the interviews that the players done, the actual type of diets he had on weren't really conducive to that sort of elite sports diet.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of folks said that, and we noticed that players were quite sluggish, players were carrying a wee bit of weight and all that. It was because the diet and the nutrition was kind of off. But it helped build a frame on Forrest and get him up a wee bit. And he obviously bought into it. I do think there hit a point where he came a wee bit, I wouldn't say he was fat, but I'd say he was a wee bit sort of too bulky for what he was. But it was a good, he got a good foundation and he built on that. And it's kind of like, if you look at even Tierney was always a skinny wee rake. And then at the latter stage, and then into Rodgers, that's when he started to look more of an athlete. So it's testament again, as he says, he's young, he's wanting to learn, he's wanting to make an impression. This guy's probably coming in with all these new sort of things to him, talking about sports science and nutrition, all that. And he's just a big sponge and wants to absorb it. Because that squad, let's be honest, that was the last vestiges of the lad culture, wasn't it?
It was,
and that's the difference. I mean, you only need to look at Lenny and stuff, guys like McCourt and things. See, as long as he thought he could kick a ball, he probably wouldn't care if you were fat as a barrel.
Yeah.
He genuinely wouldn't. So, it's not necessarily a criticism on Lennon, but he was very much old school to that extent. So there was probably no drive or importance put on make yourself a bit stronger, make yourself a snack. Probably Lennon's kept got to go like, look at Jinky Johnston's son. He wasn't a big boy, was he?
Yeah,
so
totally. I know he's that's definitely how Lennon would have done it. But what I was going to just mention earlier on was, he's obviously won a few league titles and a couple of Scottish Cups, but the League Cup has eluded him. But funny enough, in Ronnie's first season, he would pick up a League Cup and he would play a very significant role. Now, Liam, we've done Ronnie's first season on Bustalgia. We did the 2014-15 season, and this League Cup, for a relatively uneventful season, but let's be honest, the competition wasn't great. But this game's got a few interesting footnotes to it, because John Guidetti, who we talked about in that episode, who came in on loan, seemed to hit the ground running, but around about Christmas time, New Year time, when Celtic were making some noise about making that deal permanent, he seemed to kind of, his form just seemed to dip, and then Lee Griffiths got in, and he took the chance and stayed in the team pretty much after that. But Guidetti gets on as a substitute in the cup final against Dundee United in March of that year, 2015. We're 1-0 up at that point. Chris Commons had scored the first one, and we get a second goal. James Forrest came on as a sub, puts us 2-0 up. So this is the first of what he would score in 3 League Cup finals that he played in the bounce. So it became a bit of a freakish stat that the League Cup final always equaled James Forrest Day. But yeah, he scores the second one, which effectively wins us the trophy that day. But there was a very interesting moment with a couple of minutes to go. We're 2-0 up. Dundee United gave away a penalty. John Guidetti was thinking all about John Guidetti himself and the brand, where he's like, I want to take the penalty. Twice James Forrest, who'd won the penalty by getting fouled, was like, no, I'm taking it. And it ended up being a bit of a fracas between them, where Scott Brown had to come over and Stefan Johansson kind of like calming it down. Of course, James Forrest stepped up and took the penalty in the end and sadly missed it. But then we got an idea again of a player who isn't buying in to the rest of the team and so forth, where you kind of knew at that point, Guidetti's he's not going to stay here permanently. He doesn't really want to be here. We got that horrible moment where the team's all celebrating, going round the park with the trophy, a lap of honour. John Guidetti's away in a wee sulk by himself in the middle of the park. But that was all caused by James Forrest's selfishness, not letting him take that penalty. Heaven forbid, we're 2-0 up in the 89th minute. Oh dear, the humanity of it all, Liam.
I think Guidetti was a fud, man. I remember he showed up and he was dressed as some sort of New York b-boy at one time. Do you remember that? It was like stonewashed denim and a big hat with a metal trim on it and all that stuff.
Yep.
I'm like, it's like 2016, 2015. Like, what if you went back in time or something? I liked him when he first came on. But you're right. I mean, Forrest should have had every right to take that penalty, because I don't think Guidetti was their penalty taker at that point, Sometimes you just get shown for what you are, and it's usually on a big occasion, and never lies.
But Warrior says there, Steve, Guidetti's a legend's own head. All he's thinking about is the brand there, because we're not quite in 2015. We're not quite in the TikTok age and stuff like that. But Instagram and stuff was a thing in 2015, wasn't it? So
the thing with Guidetti is Brown says he had sort of opinions in himself well above his station, and I think again hindsight's a great thing. See, when you think of that, that's proof that see if a guy's checked out or no want to stay with you, don't play them. Because that was all about him. He knew he was leaving. He knew he was leaving. He was trying to get his next big move, and it could just be an RV1 in the highlight reel. Here's me smacking one in the cup final. Penalty or not.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's as simple as that.
Yep.
And all right, we're maybe in terms of talk about Mike Griffiths and stuff like that, but I think he was just getting played because he was probably on a bit of decent form, as I recall, even though he was a wee bit up and down. But listen, a cup final, he's checking out. You can't be playing him. I don't think. No, absolutely not. Like, see, once he starts getting to that sort of arrogant stage where he's more for himself, no matter whether it's a cup final or a game against Rangers or whatever, you just can't have guys like the part that are there for himself. So, nah. And I think his actions actually put forth staff, to be honest. Because see, once you've had that sort of standoff and you've had a back and forth argument with two guys coming over, your head's, you're not ready to step up and take a penalty, so you can't ever hold that against Forrest to say, you got your own way and you missed. Well, no wonder you missed.
Well, 2-0 up anyway, and it was the last minute. But I remember being in the stadium that day, and the optics of it, as Russell would say, I know he likes to use that word. I'm watching the players going round. But watch all the players go round the lap of honour, walk alone. All the fans are singing it, But John Guidetti with a Sweden flag draped around him, just walking around in the centre circle, kicking bits of confetti around, and it's like, look at you just trying to take all the attention. Pay attention to me, everybody. Look at how bad I feel right now. And it's like, you're not going to make it. So I always remember that being instant. But James Forrest did get a goal that day. He did win his first League Cup. We would win the league that season, which came to no surprise given the competition in the league that season. However, the next season is an interesting one in the sense that even though, we won the league, we had a shocking time in both the cups, knocked out in the semi-final stage of the League Cup by Ross County after scoring 20 seconds into the game by Gary Mackay-Stephen, I think, puts us a goal up. And then we just collapse. Effie Ambrose does Effie Ambrose things, gets sent off, gives away a penalty. We end up losing 3-1. What's he like? As you say, what am I like? What am I like? Obviously, we had the loss to Rangers in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup. Many of the players just seemed to be completely tuned out with Ronnie Dyler. He announced he was leaving after the Rangers game. And this is an interesting point in James Forrest's career because, like many fans, a lot of us were obviously angry with how things petered out that season, losing to Rangers in that semi, and just how everything seemed to be on a downward trajectory at that point. You could feel something wasn't right. I feel at that time, Liam, if James Forrest had left Celtic, and many fans would agree with this, I don't think anyone would have batted an eyelid because I felt like he was at a sort of crossroads at this stage where it's like, everyone thought Brown was finished at that point. Like, if he can go, Beaton, he was a shite bag in that semi-final, if I remember correctly. Even guys like Rogic hadn't really, he came onto a game under.
Barry's a penalty, but Beaton, Barry's a penalty.
He did miss the penalty, but just like, there was so many players that had stayed on, it came through the Lennon era, and you're just like, they could go. Obviously, Commons has had the big fallout with Ronnie Dyler during the season, so many people did think he would be one of them. But I don't know if it was just fans were just so angry at just all that collection of players. But Forrest definitely fell in that category where, see, if he had left that summer, because his contract was running out incredibly in the winter that was coming up, because it was going to expire in January of the next season, I don't think many fans would have batted an eyelid at that stage, would they, Liam?
No. I mean, again, I just don't know where he would have went. I mean, if he was going to leave, that was the time to leave. Was there any interest in him from England? I don't remember there ever been rumours about Forrest going anywhere else. I think if he'd have left us at that point, he'd have probably went to another Scottish team. And I still think, I'm jumping ahead, but I don't know if he'll finish his career with Celtic. I'm sure that'll be one of our questions earlier on. I think he'll end up at another Scottish team. I think you could see him end up playing with his brother. So Hearts.
Right. Okay.
He likes the goal. He likes the goal at Hibs, right?
Well, that's true. He does actually.
A yellow away kit. It'd be ideal for him.
Oh, it would be all the right signs for him. And then he would end up scoring loads for them. But it was like a weird. Was that what you sorry?
If he'd have went at that time, I think he would have been one of the players that it came through. He'd done okay, but it would be another Celtic academy player playing in the Scottish Premiership. There's a number of them as well.
The point you raised there is a good one, Liam, where at that stage, when a player's got 6 months left on their contract, say he was out of contract in 6 months' time, the way it worked out is the middle of the season. So we didn't hear any stories about, this team's interested in him. All we'd heard was his contract's running out and the club are trying to get him to sign a new one. But, Steve, were you the same thinking at that point? Was it just a collective thing where fans were just angry at the whole team for the way that season finished? Or, James Forrest, because I don't think James Forrest was in any way solely responsible for it, but he fell into a whole group, the clique as we called them, where it was just like, they could all go and it wouldn't make we'd be all right with them leaving because they're done. This team's on their last legs. It's time for a total revamp. And so I think Forrest at that stage felt like, if he did go, we wouldn't have made a difference to us, would it?
No, I think when you get to that stage, see me come at the end of any managerial cycle, particularly when it comes to the end, the way that the Dyla one did, obviously get out to Rangers in a semi-final, that's unforgivable considering the standard they were at. Naturally, every player that's involved, obviously the manager walked, but every member of the backroom staff, down to whoever the doctor is getting looked at. And the players, they're the ones that are right at the front. So they're always going to get the biggest, most criticism on them. Guys like Brownsby says, Beaton stuff, and even to an extent Forrest. But at that point, the good amount of years on the clock. So in the normal run of things, players rotate out around about that sort of time frame that they were at in terms of years, some more than others, but talking 4-5 year, whatever. Once you start getting to that sort of stage where folk are caught in that region, you're thinking they're going to move on. So it's no surprise. And again, obviously we've sort of skimmed over a lot of things, but there was highs and lows in there. And, Forrest was always polarising pretty much every season he's played for us. So I think it would be a combination of one, how poor that reign of Ronnie Dyla ended, the general feeling about the team, the standard of every player in that team, but also, as I say, it's just the fact that he was a wee bit Marmite every season with the fans, that he could have picked most players in that team and folk would have been happy to let them go. Again, another one, Rogic, easy, there's another big name.
Charlie Mulgrew and all that, all these players could easily. They could have. Well, interestingly enough, for the 2 seasons that Ronnie was there, he had a very similar record both seasons. In the 2014-15 season, he had 19 appearances and 3 league goals. And in the 15-16 appearances, it was also 19 appearances, but only 2 goals this time. But interestingly enough, there's a player who's actually in this squad at that point who would signed on an 18-month loan, who would to play a very, very significant part in the upcoming season for James Forrest, and that player would be Patrick Roberts. And of course, they obviously play a similar position to each other. All you need though is the right manager to come along, and what would happen in the summer, which we'll do the musical interlude in a few moments, but when we come back, we'll be talking about what many fans feel is peak James Forrest. And when you look back with hindsight, you go, thank God he didn't leave, because what we saw for the next few years was incredible. But again, it's something that we've talked about with James Forrest, and we'll discuss in the second half. Sometimes you need a bit of competition pushing you for that place, and that can give you that motivation to make you play better. To say the thing with Patrick Roberts we're about to get into, it's a very interesting battle, and many fans I know would have been backing Patrick Roberts in this one, that he's the guy that will cement his place in the first team. But incredibly, it was quite the opposite. So when we come back, we've obviously covered the Lennon's era, the first Lennon era. We've covered Dyler. We'll be talking about, as a prime James Forrest. We're talking about the Brendan Rodgers era and what happened there. Because, yeah, we're about to see what I would say was the reinvigoration of James Forrest, you know, the resurrection of James Forrest, you want to call it that. I'll be dramatic about it. It was a resurrection and a half. But, yeah, we'll be back in a few moments. And, yeah, we'll be getting into the 2016-17 season and how old Jamesy Boyd did then. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes, guys.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.
And we are back, folks. Yeah, so yeah, we're in the second half now of the old James Forrest retrospective. And just again, if you want to just tune in just now, just a reminder that in the comments section, there is a poll, a question at the top if you want to vote in that as well. And I'll check the results at the end. Just a very simple: what is James Forrest? Is he a Celtic legend, a Celtic great, or is he other? What other is up to you, really. You can tell us in the comments what you think he is, because that'll be one of the things we'll be discussing at the end when we sort of sum it up of what we think about his career and so forth. But yeah, you vote in that would be fantastic. But now we're going into the Brendan Rodgers era when he comes in the summer of 2016-17. As I said before the break there was a player who was currently in the squad at that point, despite Ronnie's season ending on a bit of a whimper, the second one. Patrick Roberts did look like quite a bright spark when he came in on loan from Manchester City, and we were quite excited to have him again for another year. So many people didn't really see much with James Forrest, getting many chances. Again, we knew his contract was running down. He was going to be out of contract in January. So there's many fans were sort of like, he's probably going to walk away for nothing. But there was a lot of talk that the club were making moves to get him to sign a new deal, which, again, many fans would have thought it's just so they can get a fee for him. He doesn't walk away for nothing at the end of the day. But no, James Forrest would really, really push on in this era. And one of the forgotten things, Liam, because I find this with Forrest, when we look back over some of the big moments and goals, he seems to score in games where it's maybe not necessarily the big winning goal, but he has a big moment. Because the game at Tynecastle, obviously, is the first league game of the season. We end up winning 2-1, and everybody remembers Scott Sinclair's winner. The story behind Scott Sinclair's winner: comes off the bench. He'd literally flown up to Scotland that day, I believe. He only flew in that morning. Was on the bench and comes off and scores a great goal where Griffiths breaks up the left, squares it to him, and he finishes it. But people forget James Forrest scored the first goal that day. A great finish with his left foot. It just broke to him on the edge of the area. It weaved through the Hearts defence. I believe he tries to pass it to Callum McGregor, and Hearts kind of like play it right back into his path. He takes a touch on his left foot, his weaker side, and bends it into the net. But yeah, he was off and running, and he scores the first league goal under Brendan Rodgers, and that would be a sign of things to come, Liam, of the James Forrest we were about to see.
I think, again, he's just saying, like, I think that reinvigorated his career. Do you know what? There was something else interesting that happened that season as well. And I remember it being like talked about and things that him and Rogic were really good pals. And I wondered, like, Rogic also made a turn that season as well, too. Where, like, he could have just as easily as left, right? And I'm wondering if they two, just like as being pals off the pitch and all that, just sort of like, right, we need to buckle up here, me and you, you know, or we're going to get, you know, we're going to end up playing in Australia together or something.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that was part of the thing that helped influence, like the fact that it was somebody else in a very similar position where they could just count on each other to help motivate each other, but drive each other both in training and on the park as well. Because you've surely seen it as well. I mean, so as much as I think Paddy Roberts was an influence as well, it could have been Rogic as well. You know, just having that pal in the team that's going to say, right, let's do this.
Aye, oh no, you're totally right with the parallels you've drawn there, because Rogic was unbelievable, especially in that first season under Rodgers, and the fact the first two seasons with Rodgers, Rogic was easily one of the best players in the team. I know he came back from his loan under Ronnie's second season. He began getting games and he was playing no too bad, but he really pushed on under Brendan. But Steve-o, regarding the Paddy Roberts, James Forrest thing, which horse were you backing in the early stages of that one? Because again, I was thinking, Paddy Roberts, man, this guy's so exciting. We need to sign him full time. We do everything to get this guy full time. He is the future of Celtic, you know. But who are you backing, mate?
I mean, it's always quite easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of a new signing, isn't it?
Oh, aye.
I mean, obviously we had him previously, but what I mean is Roberts, for me, and the Rodgers, it felt more like the signing he was supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, aye.
So, you know, let's be honest here. We say this no matter what, right? The guys going down south, down for England, right? But you always say that player that comes in from a more fancy sort of background, was Man City, and stylish hair and all that, looks the part. You think to yourself, that's the one that's going to work. So I'd be lying if I said that when it came down, I was thinking that Roberts was going to be the longer, more sustainable, better, more exciting option. You know, I'd be lying blind to you if I said that I wasn't. But you know, anytime Forrest did get his chances, we'll go into, he was proven he was on an equal level. There were two different players, and I think that that sort of investment as a Celtic supporter and everything that Forrest had and where he's came from, that was what ultimately would make him better than you know, Paddy Roberts. Paddy Roberts is another one of these fleeting young guys who, on the face of it, bought into everything, the whole Tierney loving and all this kind of stuff, and everybody thought,
oh yeah, of course,
he's going to be around, he loves it, he gets the club and all that, but at the end of the day, I don't think there was a real total desire there. But you know, talking about players kicking on and talking about Forrest, who wouldn't have got excited playing under Brendan Rodgers? You know,
yeah, that's true.
Listen, that's true. Guy's an absolute Jack and Ori. He's a Walter Mitty, right? And he can spin you a yarn that will make you think you're 900 feet tall. But imagine him coming in and saying to these guys, and I think as well, see off the back of how low we're just talking about all these guys are thinking, we could have been surplus to the Pirates, we could have been sold, we could have been out the door after that shocker against Rangers.
Yep.
I think a lot of these guys, I'm not saying Forrest because he's never really looked that way, and we talk about he's never really been linked with guys, or at least on the face have been linked with moves away. Probably guys look at this and thinking, see if I can do it under Rodgers. This is all the headlines are on Rodgers. Everybody's looking. See if I can turn it on. I might get that big move, or I might gain attraction for other clubs. And listen, I've no doubt in my mind that Forrest was probably also thinking that, because as we said, he was at a crossroads. So I think that helped him kick on. But to summarise your question, who did I think was going to come out and top? I thought anybody that was coming to the fore under Rodgers would ultimately have been the one that stuck around and done better. But No, proven wrong.
Aye, well, one of the comments that I brought up just after the break was saying, "Where's Paddy Roberts now?" You know, many Celtic fans have said that about him, but it's like, man, you know, it's Sunderland these days. But look at the trajectory of his career. He's again been loaned out constantly by Man City. I believe he's now a permanent transfer to Sunderland. I think that's now a permanent thing, but he's had that many loan moves.
Talking about with Diallo.
Oh, Diallo, yeah, that's right. The highlight, the human highlight reel. Yeah, I remember that guy. He get pocketed by Greg Taylor. But yeah, I remember that one fondly. But no, he's been fair play. I was backing Patrick Roberts at the time and was so determined that we would keep him and he would be the future at Celtic. He was Jota before Jota came to Celtic, many years before. But yeah, in the end, it would be James Forrest who would win it. And one of the first big moments that Forrest had under Brendan Rodgers, again, a League Cup final, because the League Cup final gets moved around all over the calendar. They just move it from one, winter time and then spring time. We go through a period, we try and match up with the English calendar. Now we've moved this season, 2016-17, the final was in December, late November, December. And we ended up beating Aberdeen 3-0 on the day, and James Forrest scored again in the final. It was him, Tom Rogic, and Moussa Dembele scored on the day. But Forrest's goal was superb. I mean, Rogic scored a great one that day, but again, Forrest, just again stepping up, and that was 2 League Cup final appearances in a row where he'd stepped up to the plate and was beginning to a wee pattern was developing there, Liam. But yeah, again, if you want to make a big impression, especially for a new manager, scoring in a cup final is definitely a good way to do it, isn't it?
Oh, certainly. I mean, he was our League Cup final expert, and Rogic was our Scottish Cup final expert. Pals act again. I mean, I honestly thought I thought Paddy Roberts was a much better player. I think at that point I thought his days were done. I thought if Paddy Roberts wasn't the problem was they were both quite injury prone. You had to get a full season at the two of them, and to really get them competing for places where one's sitting in the bench. Usually one's on the park, the other one's on the treatment table. I'd like to have seen what would have happened with Forrest if Paddy Roberts had stayed, or if Forrest would eventually taken over. Because we saw how fast he declined, Paddy Roberts. Maybe Forrest doesn't get enough credit. Maybe it was him that was pushing Paddy Roberts.
That's a good way to look at it, mate. That's you always assume it's the other way around, but yeah, never really thought about it that way.
That got the best out of him,
Yeah. I did, because he plays his part that season. We have the invincible treble season. Forrest definitely contributed when it came to that, because the 2016-17 season he played 28 times, which is the most he played in a league season up to that point, and scored 6 goals this time and also got 7 assists to his name. But obviously we'd win all the trophies that season, a clean sweep, and not lose a single league game. And along with he's contributed massively. But yeah, the whole rotation between Roberts and Forrest, with one being injured and so forth, the other one could step in. You just basically plug one into the system. If one's injured, outcome, put the other one in, and it just seemed to work. Everything worked that season for us in terms of the domestic side of things, just sweeping everything up. But it was the next season. And interesting enough, Steve, you've got a few stats about European stuff, so we'll probably come to that just now, because at the start of the next season, once again, we had some qualifiers to go through, and James Forrest does score a hugely vital goal along the way in the qualifiers. But you actually looked it up before we did the show about his goal contributions and so forth when it comes to his qualifying record and actual in the tournament record.
It's quite interesting, because here we're talking about him scoring in cup finals, big occasions, and there's obviously, as we say, there's been key goals, whether it's been a winner or setting something up or getting the ball rolling in a big game that we spoke about in the first half there. But as I say, being a sort of wee bit sort of geeky through this kind of way, numbers interest me, not in that dry, piss boring way, just simple bite-sized numbers that you can take in. Do you know what I mean? Folk just that X, Y, and Z, and that's that. I don't care about how many miles they ran, not nonsense. But the biggest argument that people always said was he doesn't turn up in the big games. So I thought, I want to look at that and see these goals. So as we all know, 101 goals, 102 assists. That's out of 463 appearances in all competitions, right? That's good numbers considering the injuries that he's had and the sort of in out in the period of time he's been there. In terms of just, I'll split it into Champions League and Europa League.
Yeah.
So we look at Champions League. Overall, he's 66 games. This is including qualifying. Overall, 66 games, 9 goals and 4 assists, right? Which is no bad.
Yep.
In the tournament proper, he's 23 games, 1 goal and 2 assists.
The 1 goal's the penalty against Ajax.
However, in qualifying, 43 games, 8 goals and 6 assists.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Then, if we look at the Europa League, I've not been in the Conference League because that's a new actually.
Yeah, we didn't do too well. Now let's just forget that Conference League game. Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
And for the Europa League, just to finish off, 42, 5 goals, 9 assists, and again, if we look at it in the tournament proper, 33 played, 1 goal, 7 assists. The assists are quite good there.
Yeah.
But in the qualifying, 9 games, 4 goals. 2 assists. So depending on how you look at that, if you want to be, your glass is half full or your glass is half empty, there's an argument to be made for both sides. But to me, if you ask me my take on it, does he do it in the big games? You could argue that no, he doesn't. Now, I know you could argue the toss and say, well, look at how good he's qualifying stats are, because they're ultimately the ones that get you there. But as we know, we come in quite an early stage. So some of these goals, some of these assists could be against the equivalent to Maryhill Stanklifters or some FC Bosman for the back end of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Hard timers. So that's not to diminish what he's done. It's just, as I say, the numbers, and everybody talks about, is he a legend? Is he an icon? Whatever. The numbers back it up, right? And I get that. So if we're looking at it just on numbers, I think they make for some quite interesting reading.
I know they do. It does kind of paint a picture, because Andy, we've got to beat the teams in qualifying. It's not our fault that we're playing a team from the back end of Europe that nobody's ever heard of. That's just the way the draws came out. We've still got to beat them and get past them. We saw potential banana skins, and we've talked about it earlier in the show. Some of the teams that have came and beat us in qualifiers, where it's like we've got such a bigger budget. How have we managed to lose to teams like Maribor and stuff like that? We mentioned a wee while ago about like Lincoln Red Imps. They beat us in the first leg. Obviously, we saw them in the second leg, but there's these fights where upsets can happen. You've still got to win them. So James Forrest does come up with the goals. And Liam, of course, at this point in time, this is the era where we could not escape Rosenborg. We would play them so many times over the course of 3 years. Huge qualifying game where we actually drew 0-0 in Glasgow, which never a good result. We always try, and many Celtic fans' head, we've got an amazing home record. Actually look at modern day, it's like, have we really? But anyway, we drew 0-0 on the night with Rosenborg and then went out there, and it was a pretty stuffy game, if I remember. It was one of those ones where we just couldn't break them down. But again, they didn't really look like scoring, but about 10 minutes to go, James Forrest popped up with the winning goal. And the thing I remember from that one is it's one of those, during the New Balance era, I felt our kits that season were very iconic, and it was the dark green and the sort of slightly lighter green hoops with the gold numbering on the back, the gold badge and stuff. There you go. There it is over the shoulder, New Balance. I like the gold. The gold is a good touch. But I remember that goal in Trondheim. But it was one of those ones where when you're watching it, 'cause I had to watch it on obviously some kind of streaming website of some kind, where the camera angle was literally like one camera, and it's like, did that even hit the net? You didn't really know initially that it had actually gone in, because he hits it from like an acute angle and it goes up into the near post, and it's like, oh shit, we've scored, and it's away goals are counting at that time. But we end up getting through, getting a Champions League proper for the second season in a row under Brendan. But a huge moment, that one, wasn't it, Liam?
I mean, he does have a few of those goals in his career where he's just popped up at the right time in the right place. As Stevie says, he contributed a lot to when we beat the wee teams, and they weren't wee teams. There was a lot of money ride on in that, and we always felt we were underdeveloped at that time as far as our recruitment and things like that go. So for somebody like James Forrest to show up in that game, that's the point where I think, okay, he's becoming a senior player. And that's taking responsibility, and that's showing up when it's counting. So at that point as well, from everything you were seeing, it was like, okay, this is James Forrest coming into his own. I think he was getting Scotland call-ups at that point as well too. And it looks like, okay, it looks like we've got a player on our hands here again. You know, so there was a lot of optimism and all that going in. And that goal certainly, you know, for me, like it boosted my opinion of James Forrest at that point that, all right, here he goes, he's kicking off again. He's finding that form. And a lot of it is as well too, is like, I think his injuries were always niggly. You know, he had niggling injury. It was never like I'm out with this. It was always like a hamstring or you know, and stuff like that. So you never ever knew if he was going to stretch in a game, get taken off injured or feel a twitch and all that. And so, but by the time we got to Rosenborg, I was thinking, okay, this is a guy that's ready to be a full-time player, and maybe we'll get a full season out of him as well. And if this is what we're going to see for him, bring it on.
I also, when we brought back Roberts that season, we got a year extension on his loan. This was the season that Roberts barely played. Roberts scored a goal in the away game to Anderlecht that we won, and that was his only real contribution that season because he was injured most of it. But Forrest didn't really get complacent because in that Champions League campaign, even though for the most part, Steve-O, it was a bit crap. We did win one game, which was away from home, which was a bit of an achievement for us. We did have that game against Bayern Munich at Celtic Park where there was a period in that game where we had them on the ropes. And actually, James Forrest is the centre of our equaliser, where he does one of those weaving runs that we talked about. Was the Hibs that were playing this time?
No,
there was no yellow kit.
I'll level up.
Picks it up, you know, but good 40 yards for goal. And he weaves for a few Bayern Munich defenders, plays a brilliant ball with outside his foot into the path of Callum McGregor, who does have to break his stride, scores. And see, at that point in the stadium, honestly, it was like the roof came off the place, the noise. And you felt like there's only going to be one winner here, but Celtic do what Celtic do best in Europe and shoot themselves in the foot. And 2 minutes later, we were behind again. But that wee crumb, that wee moment that James Forrest had at that level, he's taking on Bayern Munich, just going by with 3 players on his own. It's like, yes, that is the James Forrest I want to see. A winger taking players on, you know, brilliant to see.
No, again, this is it's moments in time, isn't it? It's like we talk about the goal that you were just discussing there previously, you know, and it's quite good. I'm really enjoying seeing some of the comments that are flooding in. And what's interesting is this is why it's so polarising, right? You know, a lot of folk are agreeing, a lot of folk are jumping on things that have been said or numbers and things like that, and that's perfectly natural. That's what we want. That's what we want, that sort of debate. But I think that's why Forrest is always going to be looked upon as being one of these polarising guys. No one's doubting the contributions made. No one's doubting that the talent's been there. But for every goal or assist or good game that he has, it's almost as if they just happen. You kind of maybe take them for granted. It's just like it's James Forrest, and it just happens and happens. But then there's these moment in time. The goal we spoke about, you know, all right, we end up getting beat, but that taking the game with the throat, leading to a key goal against a big team that has everybody absolutely pandemonium, and that's very much for me indicative of Forrest time. For me, if you asked me at the start of this show, what's your thoughts on James Forrest, I'd be like, hey, he's just kind of been there. It's just James Forrest just happened, and I've been there, and I don't remember a lot of it. But then, as we say, as we go on and you start to unwind, there's these moments. He's more of a moments guy than I'd say a highlight reel. We could argue because of the amount of goals he's got. But what I mean is there's moments, there's loads of goals, but there's amazing moments in there, and that's just another one.
There was. There was. So this season in particular, I think, was better than the Invincible treble for him because, again, the moments you remember. Because, again, much like the season 4, a bit of deja vu. A League Cup final rolls around in the dead of winter, and we're playing Motherwell this time. It was the game at 0-0. James Forrest, again, weaving in from the right-hand side, bends it in with his left foot into the far corner. So that's 3 League Cup finals on the bounce that he's played in now that he's scored in. So he's now becoming the James Forrest final. We end up going on winning 2-0, win another treble as well. But Moussa Dembele scored the other goal that day, so he ends up winning another League Cup. After going so many seasons without getting a League Cup, he's now got 3 in a matter of 4 seasons, and he's scored in those 3 finals. But yeah, in the league, there's one thing that he's not achieved. You know, he's scored goals in Europe, he's scored goals in cup finals now. There's one thing that he's not done yet. He's no scored against Rangers at this point in time. But that season, things would go very, very well for us in terms of picking up the title, and we get in a position where we can win the league by beating Rangers at Celtic Park with a few games to go. And beat them, we did. We royally bent them over and absolutely pumped them big time, because we beat them 5-0. It was the last time that we would see an away allocation of any significant number at a Celtic Rangers game, because obviously the next season they decided, no, we're not giving you the full Broom loan anymore. We went, well, that's fine then. We're not giving you those 8,000 seats in the Lisbon Lion stand either. But I will never forget the image of full time where there was not a single Rangers fan in the stadium. All those empty green seats. They always laugh at us for the empty green seats during the Ronnie era, and it's like, well, you gave us 8,000 empty green seats that day because they were out of there. But of course, the third goal in that game, Edward, I believe, had scored 2 at that point. He scored the first 2. Just for half-time, though, Forrest picks it up on the right-hand side. We've passed, I can't remember who was playing for Rangers, moving left-back. Maybe Andy Halliday was playing that day. I don't know who had been playing left-back, but we spied him. We spied the centre-back. Some roaster.
Some dunce.
Aye. But he made them look foolish that day. We've passed him and just fires. He makes no mistake. He's just like, I'm no missing here. And finally gets his first goal. I've talked about this one before. One of the things that I love, again, is the imagery of it. As he's running away, absolutely elated, celebrating. Alfredo Morelos is just behind the goal, warming up because he's a substitute that day. And the contrast in the look of both their faces, Forrest, he's absolutely loving it. And, the best moment of his life. And, of course, typical Alfredo Morelos, sourpuss face that he's got, just pure raging as normal. But, of course, we then get the iconic Mikael Lustig police hat celebration in amongst that one. But Liam, everything that could go right that day did. But here's the question, mate. Do you think we took the foot off the gas at 5-0?
We did.
Aye.
Definitely did.
I think we did. I think we definitely did.
Oh, aye.
Aye. I just looked at it. But I tell you what, that goal of Forrest, that was a nail in the coffin for them that day. At half time, that was it. If they went back in at half time, they might have had a chance to regroup, maybe get one back, who knows. But 3-0 at half time, they're done like a kipper,
They were absolutely done.
What a time of our life. I remember that game. Yeah. That game rings in my memory very well. I was running one of my best mates, Paddy's house, and there was about 7-8 of us watching the game, and it was pandemonium. And I actually remember at half time, this is how ahead of myself I was getting. I was putting on bets for 8-9-0, like genuinely, and then obviously we went 5 up pretty quick, and I think with about half an hour left of the game. I went furious, like raging at the end. You just dominated, but it looked as if more was there if we wanted it, and that was so frustrating. And actually, it's something that maybe you shouldn't ever admit to doing this, but I was so pissed off that I actually phoned Super Scoreboard on God after it, and I says to them, like, I obviously I was waxing lyrical about how we just tandem, but I made that point, and I says I was putting on 5ers on 6, 7, 8, 9 0. That's how confident I was. But what a game, and certainly, as I said, that was what I spoke about earlier on, that Forrest goal. It was an absolute topper, and he just arrows it right into the side net, and it's just, I love that. I love seeing it. It sounds really sad and a bit anarchy, but I love seeing it just hits the net and runs right around it. I love that. I love the visual.
It was the perfect day. I remember the sun was absolutely scorching. Fun fact about that as well, it was exactly 1 year to the day after beating them 5-1 at Ibrox. It was April 29th. We beat them on April 29th, 2017, 5-1 at Ibrox. On April 29th, 2018, we beat them 5-0 at Celtic Park to win the league that day. So April 29th, there you go, significant date in Celtic history. But James Forrest finally gets his first goal against them. What a day it was to get it. We wrap up the title that season, and another treble was secured. We beat Motherwell in the Scottish Cup final. But then going into the next season, again, we've started a bit poor that season, but ultimately we would go on and win another treble because that's just what we were doing at that point. But something obviously quite significant happened midway through that season when Brendan Rodgers up sticks and left, and Neil Lennon got the interim job at that point till the end of the season. But Mark did say it last night when I mentioned that tonight's show was going to be about James Forrest. This is probably the last season where we saw peak Forrest, it was those 2 and a bit years and a wee bit under Lennon where he excelled, because again, not long after Lennon takes over, we had a really vital week that season where we had a trip to Tynecastle and Easter Road back to back in the league and a Scottish Cup game. And of course, the league game we won 2-1. Did Forrest score that night, or was it Buck that scored the first one? I can remember the first goal that night was we broke down the wing and squared it across, and it was either Ollie Buck scored and Forrest set him up, or Forrest scored with Buck setting him up. Basically one of the wingers, I can remember, somebody in the chat will tell me, but obviously Edward did score the winner. But we then play Hibs a few days later at Easter Road. Scott Brown scores a rasper that night, but again, so did James Forrest. Down at the end of the Celtic fans are wearing a bright yellow kit as well. Just a freakish occurrence again. But yeah, it was another treble in the bag. But of course, then go into Neil Lennon's second tenure officially kicks off because he gets the job full time, guys. And we're talking about European goals and European moments. And of course, the biggest result I would say under that, well, 3/4 of a season that we got with that year, because obviously the coronavirus pandemic hit us in March 2020. But we also had the Europa League campaign where we actually topped our group with Lazio, Rennes, and Cluj. And everyone remembers Olivier Ntcham obviously scoring the winner, and it's an iconic moment. But again, another one of these ones where a James Forrest moment has kind of been forgotten because something else sort of superseded it on the night. And it was obviously James Forrest got us back in level terms because we fell behind quite early that night. A few things had to go right for us because I remember Fraser Forster was brilliant on the night in Rome. But James Forrest initially gets us back on level terms. A ball to the back post, takes a touch, and then again just smashes it in at the near post, And it's like a great finish. But it's often forgotten, isn't it, Liam? Because everyone remembers Cham scoring the winner.
I think Lennon got a good turn out of Forrest. That's another one of these years where you think Forrest is going to disappear. Is he going to get played? There was other players coming in. We were buying all sorts of players and that, and he just kept finding a way to get himself included in the team. And some of those big games with big goals, how do you leave him out? My only problem round about that time with Forrest is his output against Rangers just completely disappeared. That was the only thing. He was playing great, but I remember the talk was always, but we get him at Ibrox or we get him there, like James Forrest isn't cut out for the games at that point, and he could do it against other big teams, but he couldn't do it against them after that. Keeping it positive. The goal against Lazio and in that cup run, I thought he played well, but domestically, he was showing wee bits of cracks,
Well, funny enough, I actually kind of went past this one, Steve, but he did score another goal against Rangers in that when Lennon's interim spell there. We did wrap up the league title in 2019, but obviously when Brendan had left, we were 10 points in front, I believe. We had a game looming against Rangers, and he scored that day as well, although, to be fair, Tavernier does kind of pass it right to Callum McGregor. McGregor plays it into Edwards, who lays it off perfectly. But again, you've got to be in the right place to put it away.
And it's a great finish.
Scores a winner.
It's a very good finish. He runs away and does the...
does. The thing is, there's a still image of that celebration, and the thing that's best about the picture is it's the look of despair on Connor Goldson's face. Behind him, he's absolutely raging, and it's just like, I love it. I love seeing pictures like that.
No, these are the things. That goal, the goal against Lazio, it's like I said earlier, they're moments in time.
Yeah.
They're big moments, and as we said, obviously with the Ntcham thing, the celebration and the classic commentary of Rome's been conquered and all this, right? These things kind of get washed away. But again, that's keep saying that word is indicative of his time at Celtic. There's these wee moments that you just drop it in. That's classic.
Yeah.
But then, as you rightly said, folk will say he can't criticise, but his form was really up and down at that stage. But there you go, there's a moment, hold that. And I think in terms of, like Liam was saying, he always finds a way back in. Yes, he does. And sometimes that's either on the buy-in, like Dyla or Rodgers, but then there's also maybe a wee bit of the old pals act with the Lennon thing on his voice, and he knows what he's going to get. And it's almost like I'll do the best I can. Obviously, with a wee bit of mixed results, but you always know that if it's one of these guys is going to give him a chance. So I think there's a wee element of that in it.
Aye, that was probably, see, there was a period there under that second Lennon spell where we were really starting to motor as well. So he had the goal that helped us win the league against Rangers the season before. The goal against Lazio was a big moment and say a huge victory in Celtic's history. But I remember just after the Christmas period where we'd actually lost the Ibrox, I believe, in the New Year game. And we just came back after the winter break and we just seemed to motor on. They completely collapsed. And we seemed to go from strength to strength, and that's when Lennon was playing the. If I said Ibrox, they beat us at Celtic Park. Sorry, it was Katic scored the winner, wasn't it, that season? But yeah, they started to collapse. That's when Lennon decided to go 3-5-2. I can remember a game we played Motherwell at Fir Park. I think we blew them away like 4-0 or something. Again, Forrest scored on that night as well. Just we were superb, and it was just like, yeah, things are starting to click again. But of course, then coronavirus pandemic happened, and unfortunately for Celtic, everything would collapse over the next year and a bit because, when we came back for the next season, obviously playing behind closed doors, even though Forrest did have his moments here and there, the whole team, everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I'm not going to go on too much with that one. Me, myself, I even stopped watching football for a long time during that season, not even just because Celtic were bad. I just couldn't watch football in an empty stadium. It was just like, this is terrible. Like, okay, if Celtic are playing bad, maybe I'll watch a Premier League game or something. It was just rotten to watch, the fake crowd noise. I was like, no, I can't go this at all, man. So I just totally switched myself off from football. So I'm just going to, it's a total blind spot for me that entire season. Just try and forget about it. But yeah, bottom line is everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Neil Lennon obviously was moved to Celtic manager, and then comes to the current day, bring it up to present as Ange Postecoglou now Celtic manager. And again, where does James Forrest lie in this? Now, obviously, he's had a contract extension at the start of this season, a 3-year contract extension, which not many fans saw coming, Liam, because I thought he'll maybe get a year extension because last season in Ange's first season, obviously, he had to throw a squad together. So Forrest stayed around on experience and so forth. And again, he also ticks a box in terms of being a homegrown player for UEFA squads, but he did have his moments of contributing. We obviously have we had a terrible record at Almond Vale. He did score a goal that day when we finally got that monkey off our back of bad results through Livingston. So he did score that day. There's the League Cup semi-final. Obviously, we went on and won the League Cup last season. When we don't win the semi-final, we ain't going to win the League Cup. So he did score the winner that day. So he did have his moments last season. But obviously his contract was coming up, and then he got a 3-year extension. So it brings us to the current day scenario. Where does James Forrest sit in the pecking order? What is his role going forward? He has scored a hat-trick this season, the hat-trick against Hibs. There's one of the answers, which I told you that would happen, which obviously took him over the 100-goal mark. That's that got him there, Liam. But where do you see Forrest then going forward? I know you said earlier on you think he might move on, but do you think there's a chance that if you had the chance to think about it, maybe he will retire at Celtic? Because I believe he's only 5 trophies away from becoming the most decorated Celtic player of all time, and he's 31-year-old. Still got a few years in the tank, I reckon.
It depends who else Ange brings in. Right now, I can't see him competing for a spot with Maeda or Abada or that. I mean, it's hard. I was shocked when he got a 3-year contract. And the only thing I could put it down to was we were looking for some sort of continuity at that point. Where Ange, and I hate because Steve brought it up the other night when I was watching the bus. You guys were talking about Scott Bain. You don't want to see guys getting paid just to be pals with everybody and all that. But I remember a lot of players talking about Forrest as being the one that was like telling about the club's history and what's expected, like all the sort of insides of Celtic. And for that, I don't think he's a legend. I don't think he's going to have enough of a lot to contribute. If he does, I think it's just sentimentality at this point that, he is a homegrown player. We'd like to see him play his entire career at Celtic, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's been very, very fortunate enough at times as well to play for Celtic. He's on a good wage. I'm sure he gets paid handsomely. And he's, I think it was Gary Brown that had it earlier. He's like, he gets my respect. I think he'll retire no matter where he ends with Celtic or which I think he's going to end up at Hearts. But if he does, I think he leaves fans. His brother plays there. Who knows? That's what I was saying. I could see him playing with his brother.
But
I think his contract would have to expire. That's the thing. I don't think we would sell directly to them, but if his contract's right, but he's got 3 years left on the current deal. So we've still got a wee bit to wait. Well, we were signing that 3-year deal at the start of the season. He's here until he's going to be, 34 years old at this rate.
You know, and he's done well. He's done well not being in. You know, like his injury woes have sort of went away for a little while now as well. And maybe that might be, you know, the fact that he's very adaptive to modern training methods and nutrition and all that. Like he seems to embrace that part of the game. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't see him sticking around. I look at our speeders, just like the speedy wingers and all that we have, just zipping about. And I know he's still got a bit of an engine on him and that, but I watched him at that game in Ibrox and, you know, the one where we drew and that, and I just felt he looked like the odd one out on the pitch. And I don't know if that's going to get better or worse. My feeling is it'll probably get worse. And we'll see what happens. You know, it does become a good player to have in training and all that. But like, I'd rather we sign players that can play in the park. I don't really have a solid opinion on this one. It's like, because as I said, he'll show up next week, he'll get a hat trick, you know.
It could easily happen.
And it's happened already this year, you know.
Well, Steve, you made a really interesting point I wanted to pick up on. Where you mentioned it last night when I was saying, tomorrow night's all about James Forrest, like yourself and Mark. Well, Mark says that maybe the club are to kind of blame for the constant, you know, why there is a bit of apathy towards him with some fans. It's as sad as it was, and I kind of agreed with what Mark was saying, where if he did have a testimonial tomorrow, and the only reason I think he's not had his testimonial yet is because it would have been during the COVID season, so they put off And he's like, I don't know if it would even sell out. And I'm like, that's really sad if that was to happen. I don't think it would, but I think it would sell out. But I don't think it would be a hot ticket. I don't think fans would be climbing over each other to get a ticket. But you'd also said last night about him.
Yeah.
Is he, regarding the competition he's been up against, did he just break into the Celtic team at the right time? Is he just a guy that's found himself in the right place at the right time, where he's came into this team and it's been a great time to be a Celtic player for the last 12, 13 years or whatever, the amount of trophies that we've scooped up? Or is it, because overall you look at the numbers that he's put in, but you would say, well, he's also contributed massively. He's earned that place. But then, as you rightly say, some people who watch the game with their eyes will still see things like, there's a quiet game here and there, as Liam just said. Next week you could turn up and score a hat-trick against somebody. Wouldn't surprise me if he played against Dundee United on Sunday and scored a hat-trick against them, because they just leak goals left, right and centre. Wouldn't shock me. And then the next week he's off the boil. Like, look at him playing at Ibrox the other week, that curveball that was thrown in there. And by half-time, you're like, get him off. He's doing nothing. So how do you feel about him, Jig, that he has just landed on his feet, or no, at the end of the day, he's got the numbers to back it up?
So to address sort of the overarching and then what you've said, this is where, for me, the journey that we've went on, this is where the Cinderella story, for me, the clock struck 12 and we're starting to wind down and a bit of reality's kicking in. And what I'm probably about to say will probably split opinion, but that's what football fandom is, right? For me, firstly, on the 3-year contract thing, yes, absolutely shocked, right? Completely shocked. Now, in Angie's first seasons, we've touched on some really key goals, you know, and he contributed, no doubt about it, right? Huge. But getting into this season, all right, there's been flashes, and again, I repeat the phrase, moments in time, but it's been interspersed with just that very much up, down, or he comes on and what's he really doing? And I think it's much like I said with Bain. I think the length of the contract was too long, right? I don't... Listen, we've spoke about the guy, we've waxed lyrical, we've celebrated his highs, we've pointed out some of his deficiencies and everything else, but fundamentally, you've got to remove all that sentimentality and all of these moments and say, at this moment in time, is he better than who's in front of him? The answer's probably no. Is he going to get chosen ahead of those guys? Even in a rotation? Probably no. So his position is limited, and then you say, what is his position moving forward? Are you going to have 3 years of him being the gatekeeper to Celtic, where he comes in and puts the arm around folk and shows them the way, and you know what I mean, shows them the way of the Jedi, and tells them
Jedi Master James Forrest.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I get you.
And listen, I'll just want to make this abundantly clear. The guy's contributed massively over his time. Huge, can't be taken away. Marmite, some love him, some like me pick out the moments and just think everything else, I appreciate it, but it's just kind of happened. I've neither been overwhelmed or gutted.
Yeah,
it's just been there, and I think that we're at the stage now where I don't see him seeing out a 3-year contract. I don't think his use long term merits that, and I think it is a bit of an old boys act. It's doing the favour. It's not too dissimilar to McCarthy signing for Celtic. You know, let's face it, he's on the wind down of his career, and yes, he will, despite us all, pop up with these hat tricks and moments of brilliance. But there'll be folk that I fucking told you, look at that, right? It's a passing moment, unfortunately. Now it's not consistent, and that's not disrespecting him. That's just reality. He's a guy with a wee dust of magic in his boots every now and then, but it's not going to happen week to week, month to month, season to season. He is on the wind down, and that's that's where I think it's up with me. I respect him, and he's been loyal to the club and he's never looked elsewhere. I don't know if he's had the question asked him, but I just don't think the trajectory we're on, that he is much more of a place other than, as I say, is to be this sort of pseudo gatekeeper that will maybe mould the younger generation. See if he wants to stay at the club, is try to get him involved in the coaching like we've done with McManus and O'Day and the likes of guys like that. Is that maybe the way? I think there's maybe more of a long-term future for him in a kind of youth development stroke ambassadorial role for that kind of, you know. I think that if you want to look at guys who've come through the academy to inspire the younger, perfect. But on the pitch, I just listen. I just think it's very, very much the wind down, and we can be bleary-eyed all we want about it, but we've got, as we say, look with our eyes. And that Rangers game for me, it's only one game. Might play next game, be brilliant. But for me, when he started, I was like, I understand why he's doing it, because he'll give us a wee bit more defensively. In the first 5-10 minutes, he had a couple of wee tackles in the halfway line. I was like to my mate, see, I told you. And then I just went off a cliff. You know.
For the most part, I'd agree with that. He's definitely obviously in the wind down his career. It's natural. He's 31 now, so he's signed a 3-year deal. But I think, compared to like what you guys were saying, I think he will retire at Celtic. I think he will see it out. I know we've said before about Ange, he doesn't seem to be a guy that has any time for sentimentality and seems to be a bit ruthless, but I think James Forrest will stick around and see out his contract. And I think when we're talking about the numbers are in terms of the trophies, right now he's on 21 major honours, 10 SPL titles, 6 Scottish Cups, 5 League Cups. It's the exact same as Scott Brown in a Celtic shirt. Scott Brown's got 1 extra League Cup that he won with Hibs. But in terms of the players that are in front of him with the major honours, Billy McNeil's got 23, a European Cup, 9 Scottish Premier Leagues, or Scottish First Division would have been at that point, 7 Scottish Cups, and he's got 6 League Cups. And Bobby Lennox has got a European Cup, 11 Scottish Premierships, 8 Scottish Cups and 5 League Cups. So he's only 4 away from matching Bobby Lennox and 5 away from passing him. I think he will get those winners' medals over the next few years. I do think he will pick them up. I could see him retiring as a Celtic player. I just can't envision him anywhere else at all. Like, no. Like we were talking about him playing within Scotland. I just can't see it. At most, if he was to move somewhere, if he was to leave, I could see him going to a place like the MLS or something. You know, one of those leagues that something like that. But ultimately, I can't see James Forrest anywhere other than a Celtic shirt. The guy, you know, and it's weird because, again, it goes back to what we're talking about with Ange, where he doesn't seem like he's got time for sentimentality and any sort of like fairy tale stories. But I just think with James Forrest, there's a dependability with him there where you just know that if you do throw him in, you're going to get a performance out of him against maybe with the big European nights and obviously Rangers games, maybe no, but these games against like Hibs and all that, Dundee United, they're still games we've got to win the title. So I think you'll always get a decent performance out of him in those ones. He's a dependable hand. It's not we're going to an obscure market and picking somebody up. We're like, I don't know what we're getting here. We know what we'll get with James Forrest. But here's a question for you. If he did stick around, do you think at this stage in his career where naturally he's going to be getting a bit slower, do you think there's another position that he could play on the park, like more centrally, like behind the forwards? Or do you think that's something that he wouldn't be able to do? Do you not think he can convert to something different at this stage in his career?
It's never too old to try and learn new tricks, as we've seen. But for me, no, I don't think so, because to move him into centre or somewhere, he's never been great in the tackle. That's never been any part of his game, and it would be too quick a learning curve to ask him to do that. The big thing as well is, looking at guys like McCarthy and even Moy, folk will criticise for them not having turn of pace, but they're completely different players, and what these guys have got is they can pick a pass, fend off a challenge, and always be in the right place at the wrong time. So it's right place at the right time.
Yeah, I get it.
But I don't see him being able to fall into that kind of deep role. I don't think in terms of receiving a ball, he's got the sort of dexterity to just turn, look, pivot and pass. Once you've been a winger and you've had that sort of received the ball, run, try to cross, drilled into you, that's going to be super hard to lose. And again, all right, if it's short paces in the middle, you could argue he's maybe got that pace, but I don't think he has. So I don't think he's going to be able to adapt into anything different. I think he'll just be a wide player that doesn't do what wide players do. He's not going to charge forward as much. He's just going to be an outlet. And maybe what you'll find is rather than carrying the ball, or it'll be more a case of just finding the right space to be available to pass it to, but he doesn't have to do much in terms of running or carrying or taking folk on. And then at that stage, you've got to ask yourself, are you a winger? So, he has at a wee bit of crossroads. He's lost that extra yard of pace, and as we've discussed, even go further back, that going to the byline thing's been kind of long gone for a long period, and particularly the way where we play, it tends to be less done. I say that, you get my head and stuff and play balls across, but it less in the sort of direct, just skinning guys and flashing one in. It tends to work its way out there through movement and passing. So no, I think in terms of that, I don't see him being able to adapt or change. I think he'll just become a lesser version of what he was. But to sort of, you asked me something that's just came to me. You said about testimonials.
Yeah.
One thing I'd say about testimonials is, it's unfortunate. Do I think it would sell out? Possibly not. But here's another one. Who would it be against? Because, again, and I use the phrase, moments in time, there's never been, for me anyway, one team that I associate as being a James Forrest or game. So, he's had some great games against domestic teams. So you're not going to play a testimony against Hibs, are you?
No. I think it would be an English team. I'll just first take a stab at Man United, just as a stab. But no, I think overall, as I'm looking at the comments at the corner of my eye, and as I said last night when I picked James Forrest to do this one, I knew he was a very polarising character, and there's some interested opinions coming in, because one more thing that I need to do, guys, I need to go and check what the poll results are in the one I put up at the start. So obviously I asked at the start, guys, they put a comment up that's pinned to the top of the comment section. Is James Forrest a Celtic legend? Is he a Celtic great? Or is he other? And other is whatever you want it to be, whatever you define him as. But let's have a wee look, guys, at the results just now. There are a whopping 98 votes on this. And at the moment, It's a Celtic legend has 39%, a Celtic great 50%, and other is 11% at the moment. And going by a lot of the comments that I've been reading tonight from folk like Kevin 14 and stuff like that, from Gary Brown, they're very, very adamant legend. And I've been asking what defines a legend. You know, they've drawn good comparisons there, but it's like, well, Scott Brown's won the exact same number of trophies as him. And we always say captain, leader, legend. But I think the trophies will speak for themselves. Mark made a great point last night where, see if James Forrest was a player that played for Celtic in the 70s or 80s, and this day and age he was doing, like, say, you know, podcasts and showing up at after dinner speaking and stuff like that. You heard the stats of this guy. Like, oh, they get, you know, 100 plus games, 100 plus goals, 100 plus assists, and all that. You won X amount of trophies, 21 at the moment, probably end up more. You would go, hell, man, Celtic legend, no doubt about it. And I think over time, when people look back on that, it'll be like, well, Celtic legend. If Scott Brown has got an equal record, or a similar record, and he's deemed a legend, and again, it's all subjective. If people don't think he's a legend, then that's their gift to do so. But with me, my leaning, I actually voted on legend because, again, I think that he will surpass the record, and at the end of the day, that'll be the first thing people look at. And I think he's contributed enough in this successful period for Celtic. Because look at somebody like, I'm not saying that putting a comparison, but I'm just picking somebody who's won a lot of trophies who didn't really contribute. Somebody like Near Beaton, right, who was there for many years of the last decade of success. But is he a Celtic? Is he even a Celtic great? No, he's not. I think James Forrest is stepped up and contributed more than enough to be in the legend category. But again, it's everyone's gift too. So, Liam, what about yourself? Legend, great, or other?
I would say great, somewhere between great and other. I don't see him as a Celtic legend, but I don't put many people up there. For me, it's like maybe about 7 players, you know, that I consider Celtic legends. You know, Celtic greats. I think he's had great moments at Celtic, but he's never been a Celtic great. And for great, for me, there has to be a consistency to it. And I think the injuries and the inconsistencies and that where he does show up for me, where he is a Celtic legend, was in Celtic TV when he tried to pick up the presenter by inviting her to Nando's in the middle of an interview. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, actually.
He's interviewing him and he's like, what are you doing after? Do you want to go to Nando's? It's like, what?
He's got to get legendary status for that. Come on, man. That was brazen.
I'll get legendary status for that, right?
There you go.
I think somebody said the other, I think what he's got is got the respect for the fans. And when you look at something like what we did tonight, you can't help but respect to what he brought to us. I'd like to see him go into a coaching role. The fact that he can adapt to so many different managers along his career, the fact that he's kept it going, that's where he'd be good to show up. And I think that could be, I think he's one injury away for retirement. I don't know if he can recover for another James Forrest type, 9-month type injury again. And who knows, maybe that's it. Ange obviously has a lot of respect for him, as somebody said as well. Antonio Forrest, playing him in the Rangers game, absolutely. So maybe he's got the respect to him to help look after some of the boys coming through the academy and being a coach and that sort of thing, because I think he can offer a lot of value, a lot of experience. But also as well, it's like, you might see my medal collection, here's what you could have. So
exactly.
I'd give him that. I think he's a great player and I totally respect everything he did for the club, but I am a wee bit harder to please at this age.
That's fair enough. It's your gift to do so. I knew tonight would be interesting. Reading the comments, there's a lot of people disagreeing, but hey, that's what happens. We're not an echo chamber on the bus. I've said legend. Liam said somewhere between other and great. Steve-O, what about yourself? Where would you place James Forrest? How would you define what he's done at Celtic? Live the dream, obviously.
Yep. So for me, I just want to comment on the general terminology that we band around with folk, right? I think it's completely. I will give an answer, but I think it's completely. I think it's completely subjective, and I think it all depends on what your take is and what do you put more weight on? Is it trophies, appearances, goals, longevity, all those things? When I think of these things, I think to my dad,
Mhm.
and I spoke to my dad, and he's of an age where he's seen some of the great times,
Yep.
seen the Lions playing, 1967, everything else in between. And I say to my dad, who's the greatest player you've ever seen play for Celtic?
Mhm.
He says Henrik Larsson.
Right,
Right?
that's fair. Yeah.
So my point being, it's completely in the eye of the beholder and subjective.
Yeah.
This is why I always get a wee bit peeved. See when you say, like, pick your greatest Celtic 11.
Yep.
It's easy to just go, Lisbon Lions. Are they the best midfielder, winger, defender? We'll never know. But bleary-eyed, because they achieve something that no one else has done, instantly dictates that they are the best.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I get it.
And it's like, I think there's certain people as we get older that will attain, they'll be legend, but I think it can be generational. So for someone like myself who grew up through the sort of 90s period and then got to see everything up to current day, well, that period is easy to just go Larsson straight off the bat, right? Because that's something I grew up with, and he's got the trophies, and he's got the performance, he's got the consistency, and it cements that. Someone who saw Paul McStay growing up will say Paul McStay, and so on and so forth. So the generation who have grown up with your James Forrests, Scott Browns, they'll be their legends. But see everything that came before them, Larsson, Johnson, McNeil, the history, they'll look and go, they are greats. So we're in that middle point, you know what I mean? We're in that middle point where to someone like me that's went for the 90s upwards, he's just another very good player. So I'm maybe more with Liam, and I'll sit back and I'll say, yeah, I think he's done X, Y, and Z. I think he's a legend. No, so I'll fit him in the great category. But people who grow up with him, for them to say he's a legend. And I think that just flips on. There's certain players and things, the Lions, for example, will be undeniable. And again, Larsson will be undeniable.
Oh, yeah.
But as we move on, for example, this team right now, I don't know, is there anybody in this team that the generation watching them might think is a legend? I don't know. And I think that's what it is. I think the terminology is really dictated on your frame of watching the team. So there will be folk that have grown up with Jamesy that think absolute legend, whereas for folk that are like my age, Liam's age, your age, it might be you'll either swing one way or another. You'll either say, aye, they are because of the numbers, or you'll just look at it and say, no, just another really good player. And that's where I'm at with it. I'll fit him in the box of great, but I can understand that he will be a legend to some, and to the generation further down the line with their my age, looking back, probably James Forrest will be a legend.
Aye, that's fair. For the end of the day, it's all about different opinions and so forth. Although I will bring up this comment from Alan Woods. I think he sums up well. Is immortal better than a legend? If so, the Lions and Jock are immortal. And I believe it was Bill Shankly that told Jock, he said, Jock, you're immortal now, when they won the European Cup. And that's definitely true. Because, I knew it would be an explosive one tonight, and it certainly has in the comments. But at the end of the day, we're not sitting here and saying that James Forrest is a bad player or anything. We've all got different opinions on how we feel his careers went and so forth. And it's everyone's gift to have a different opinion anyway. But yeah, that wraps up our James Forrest special. A nice 2-hour Bustalgia, just like the old days, just like how it used to be. This is always my target, to wrap up in about 2 hours. So we've managed to do it. There's only one more thing that we need to do, guys, in case you forgot. I did actually give you one of the answers during the show. I did give you one. I knew it would happen. There is just 4 answers to this one, just 4. And the question was quite simply, James Forrest has scored 4 hat-tricks in his career. Who were they against?
You've given us Hibs. I think I've got 2.
Okay.
I think if you're not 2.
I'll throw one in there because I've only got the one. St. Johnson. Oh,
St. Johnson. That's the one where he scored 4 at McDermott Park. So, yeah, that's one. Yep.
Right.
Who's he?
Hearts?
Nope.
Dundee United?
No.
Dundee United? No.
Nope.
No, I'd have Hearts and St. Johnson.
Hey, are you counting Phil, are you counting the hat-trick he scored for Scotland?
The question was, he scored 4 hat-tricks in his career. I didn't say Celtic, did I?
No.
So the Israel one does count. Yes, he scored a hat-trick against Israel. Well done. If you watch, obviously, on the Monday Club, when I come on and do the Sutton Death at the end, every so often I'll throw a curveball in there where Jonathan and Russell have got to listen to the question, because it's like, you know, I'm not saying specifically this. Well done, Liam. That was a tricky one that I thought that one might catch people out.
Well spotted,
but yeah, it was Israel. But there's a fourth one. There's a domestic one that you've not got yet.
But they're still in the league.
No, they are not. They are not in the Premier League now.
Inverness.
No, you're not a million. Well, you're quite geographically, you're quite a distance away, but the name you're not too far off on.
Partick Thistle.
Partick Thistle was a Scottish Cup game, beat them 3-2, and James Forrest scored a hat-trick. So yeah, Partick Thistle in the Scottish Cup, Hibs in the league this season, St Johnstone in the league under, I think, Brendan's 3rd season. And yeah, the fourth answer was for Scotland against Israel. So the question was 4 hat-tricks in his career, not 4 hat-tricks for Celtic. So yeah, there you go. Well done, guys. So yeah, it's been an eventful one tonight, but we've got through it, guys. We've got through it. We've definitely divided some opinion with some of stuff. But at the end of the day, that's what the bus does. You know, we don't come on here and just all nod heads and go, "That's a great point there. That's a great point." Yeah, well, I agree totally with that. No, at the end of the day, no. I've seen the comments as well tonight. But yeah, the poll says Celtic great rather than Celtic legend. But I do think that Alan Woods, the word immortal, I would say goes above legend, and that's probably something. Is James Forrest a Celtic immortal? That'll be the next topic that we'll come to. Is he an immortal? But yeah, anyway, we've covered that one. So obviously, what's happening this week on the bus? I say Russell is unavailable for the next few days, so unfortunately, you're going to have to be looking at my face on the show. Tomorrow night, we are planning on doing a Saturday night blarer. That's the plan, because on Sunday we'd end up doing 2 shows. We'd have the morning one and obviously PMP later. So yeah, I'll be on the Saturday blarer. David Lowe will be doing most of the talking though, because that's his show to host. I'll just be here to basically bring up comments and whatnot. I'll be doing all of that and give my opinion when I'm asked on it. And yeah, we'll have PMP on Sunday night. I'm not promising it's going to be a 3-hour show, because I know PMP recently has been going in that direction. I don't think it will be, but obviously after the Dundee United game, we will get that sorted. I will try and get Mr. Terry Robb on. We'll get him and whoever else wants to come on as well. Hopefully Celtic have got a nice good result for us to talk about, and it's not a clang. I've just got this bad feeling. I'm like, yeah, thanks Russell, you've left me to do PMP and we've had a bad result. So yeah, I'm hoping that's not the case. Fingers crossed. And yeah, Monday, I know Russell's unavailable on Monday. He's got something he's at, so I don't know if he'll do a Monday club when he gets back home or if he'll save it to Tuesday. Don't be surprised. You know what the bus is like. We do Monday clubs on a Wednesday sometimes when we feel like it. So don't be shocked if we go for another Tuesday Monday club again. Confusing, you know. It's Monday, you know what that means. No Monday club, you know. So something will happen anyway. But yeah, there'll be plenty coming up in the next few days. But yeah, guys, it has been a good show. You've enjoyed yourselves?
Aye, you know, I'm quite surprised that, as I say, the memory coming back for us, because if you asked me at the start, I would have just went, good player, he's just always been there, but there you go. Aye,
it's but no, it's been as I say, interesting one with the comments and so forth. But in today, you know, it's all about different opinions, and that's what we do on the bus. So now we will head off into the distance. We'll get Chris Sutton to play us out, and yeah, we will be back tomorrow night, and we'll be doing a Saturday night blarer. I think maybe 8 o'clock. But again, the link will go up. As long as you're subscribed, you'll see the link. But yeah, we will catch you in tomorrow night. And thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you later.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.